Shall this be the cold open? What a hideous outfit combo this is. I said to myself before I pressed record that I wasn't going to show you how literally everything I'm wearing is clashing, but I couldn't resist it, so you're welcome. Hey there, poetry pals, welcome back to another video. This week I'm going to be talking to you about spoken word poetry. Woo! Finally! Yep, I'm going to be talking you through my top 10 tips for writing and performing spoken word poetry. This is going to be really useful for beginners, but also just generally anyone who's looking to improve their practice. To be honest, these are some tips that I could do with following as well. So, when I say spoken word poetry, spoken word is actually a really large umbrella term that can mean any words that are spoken. In this context, I am talking about poetry, but obviously spoken word can refer to storytelling and stuff like that. But generally, the way that spoken word is understood to mean in the UK at the moment is a sort of like nexus point between written poetry, but spoken out loud, all the way across to near rap. And spoken word sort of covers that space in between. It's definitely performance based. That doesn't mean it has to be live in the same room, but it's definitely that spoken, obviously. But I'm talking specifically about what can call itself spoken word poetry. But before we go any further, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications. It really helps small creators like me get found. Comment down below what brought you here as well. And while we're on the subject, why don't you follow me on social media? I am at Josie Alford Poet on all the things. Also, if you want to show your appreciation, you can buy me a coffee or join me on Patreon. The links to do both are in the description down below. Right then, let's do these tips. So, my number one tip first, because it is the most important, and this applies to any type of poetry, is consume as much spoken word as possible. To improve, you have to consume more spoken word. You don't have to be at events to do it, although I thoroughly recommend getting involved in your local spoken word community and the scene that is there. But if that isn't an option due to whatever reasons, trust me, the town that I grew up in didn't have a spoken word scene. The internet is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And the awesome thing is that people are still running online events as a result of the pandemic, but also people are running hybrid events where you can watch live shows from your bedroom or living room. So really, there is like no excuse. There's also buttloads of material available for free online. So there are loads of options. Why am I telling you this? This is the most important thing that I ever learnt when it came to writing poetry was during the first few weeks of my masters, and my lecturer told me this, that if you only consume one type of poetry, that is what you will sound like. If you only consume one type of a thing, that's who you're going to end up sounding like. So if I were a musician and I listened to just the Spice Girls, I would end up sounding like the Spice Girls, and I wouldn't end up sounding like Josie. But if I listened to loads and loads of music, for example, Little Mix as well as the Spice Girls, we are gonna carry on. I do not mean that. What I mean is if you listen to loads of different types of music, so if I started listening to AC/DC and musicians from the Philippines, as well as the throat music, the throat singing, and I started listening to Cornish folk music, and I also started listening to emo and experimental. I also was listening to classical. Then I would have influences from everywhere, and through that I would be able to find my own voice. That is what you want to do here. Not to mention, you'll find techniques that people do and you're like, I like that, I'm going to give that a go. So consume loads of spoken word. That is the number one way you can improve your own spoken word. The next 4 steps are all about writing for spoken word. So what I mean is writing with the stage and performance in mind. Tip 2. Watch my how to write a poem video. This is for anyone who is maybe never written poems before or has only ever done it in a very disorganised way. When I was doing a master's, I had to write 45 poems in the space of about 3 months. This was because my dad died during the masters and all of my deadlines got messed about, so I had to write a lot of poetry in quite a short space of time. This took a lot of discipline, and I couldn't rely on just being like in the mood to write poetry, because let me tell you, when you're going through the grieving process, you're not always in the mood to write poetry, you're not always in the mood to do anything. That's another video. I ended up coming up with a system of how to write poetry, and I've made a video about it. And if you're new and you're starting out, or you're just looking for a new way of attacking how to write a poem, watch this video. I think you might find it useful. Step number 3, and I think this is very important for spoken word poetry, is to have reading aloud as part of your writing process. Now, for you, that might mean that your entire poem is written aloud. By that I mean using voice notes on your phone to record yourself and building it from there. I've done that before as well. I've written a poem on a car drive by having my voice memo app open and recording myself just talking and like as if I'm making up a poem on the spot, and then using that to write the poem. But you might do it how I normally do it, which is I write my poem as a draft, I read it out loud, I find what feels nice, I find where the flow is, and I edit it that way. Step 4, this is something to just think about while you're writing, is that the way people experience poetry is a temporary experience. By that I mean that I've said this so many times on my channel and I still haven't found an eloquent way of saying it, so please bear with. But when I say that spoken word poetry is a temporal experience, what I mean is that you are listening to someone perform on stage and the poem exists in that moment and then it is gone. You only experience it moment by moment and then that's it. This is obviously slightly different for videos. If you're watching spoken word online as a video, as you have the ability to pause, you can absorb, you can rewatch bits. By the way, check out my reaction to Buddy Wakefield's video. But largely the nature of spoken word is that the audience will only be able to hear it once. This means that it has to have an immediate impact. When you're thinking about what you're trying to say and the point that your poem is trying to make, you need to make sure that that point is being made immediately, because otherwise people are going to miss it. This is different to page poetry because people will generally spend more time with your poem, they'll reread bits of it, reading the poem to themselves, they were a lot more likely to pick up on something when they can go through it at their own pace. Now, you could argue that this means spoken word poetry is simpler, but I don't think that's true, because I think spoken word has this whole other dimension of being out loud and having to be a good performance. So, whilst it might seem that you're presenting your ideas in maybe a simpler way than if you were writing a page poem, I don't know. I think you just need to make your point easy and obviously so people will get it. Tip 5 is, again, part of the writing process, but to think about sound patterning. And by that I mean anything where you are repeating sounds. So rhyme, alliteration, half rhyme, assonance, sibilance, consonants, anaphora, repetition, all of that stuff. So you want to be thinking about those techniques more heavily when you're writing for spoken word, because the pattern of sound is going to be very pleasing to the ear when people are watching you perform. Visual rhymes don't work in spoken word. Feel like that needs to be said. Okay, so the next 4 tips are all about how to improve your performance in particular. So you've written your poem, let's talk about the performance part of it. With that in mind, tip 6 is to practice. Revolutionary! Bet you didn't think I was going to say that one, did you? Of course not. Josie, you're a genius. Practicing my spoken word? Who'd have thought it? By this, I mean at home, in the mirror, at open mics. Okay, so the benefits of practicing at home is you can practice saying your poem in different ways. You can play around with what sounds good, where you need emphasis, that sort of thing. I also recommend trying it in front of a camera so you can watch yourself back, or at the very least record yourself and listen to yourself back. This is actually a really useful way of also learning your poems off by heart as well, is listening to your own recorded voice doing it back. By the way, I will be making a video on how to learn your poems off by heart, just as soon as I learn how to do that. Doing it in the mirror and in front of a camera is really helpful as well, because you can watch yourself back and like think about, I don't know, what you're doing with your hands, with your face, all of that sort of thing. And then practicing at open mics as well. If your spoken word scene is anything like Bristol, there are going to be some really lovely, welcoming, beautiful open mics where you will find a welcoming space to try new poetry and to try it out in front of people. You might even be lucky and find people who are willing to give you feedback on how to improve. Practicing at open mics in front of a crowd is also really important as well, because you will realise what works for a crowd and what doesn't. Not to mention, you'll get to practice speaking on a stage, maybe even with a microphone. Step 7 is to think about silence. So this is definitely when it comes to your practice sessions, but I think it's something that we don't really think about enough, especially when we're starting out with spoken word, is to think about silence and pauses and how we can use that. And I guess part of it is to think about sound as well, but how we can use pauses to create emphasis. Pausing allows the audience to take a minute, absorb what you've just said before carrying on. This is something that Buddy Wakefield does spectacularly in his video that I reacted to, which I will make pop up. Okay, tip number 8 is about mic control. Now, this is something that takes people a really long time to learn, and I'm giving it to you for free right now. There are an embarrassing amount of poets who don't know how to use a microphone properly, and I just want to tell you how to do it because it will help so bad. First of all, do not be afraid of the microphone. Now, to be clear, I understand that sharing your poetry in front of people is absolutely terrifying, and just getting up on stage is terrifying enough. Why would you want to be heard? Well, because we want to hear your work, babe. So, don't be afraid of the microphone. Get up all up in its business. Let me show you. I do not have a microphone on me, so this is what we're going to have to use. Okay, here is good mic technique. Based on the fact that you're just going to be talking into the microphone, you want it as close to your face as you can. My technique is sometimes, when I know I'm not going to be sharing the microphone with anyone, I genuinely sometimes just rest it on my chin. But you want to be talking right into it. Most microphones you'll need to talk right into it, and you want to be holding it right there. Now, if you're going to be playing with volume in your piece and you're going to be shouting or you're going to be doing some like singing and you want to go high pitched, then you move away. But when you're back to your normal speaking voice, you come back close. That's why you sometimes hear singers when they're really belting it, they'll go like, "Wah!" and then come back. That was my singing voice. Did you like it? You're welcome. So yeah, you want to basically be making out with it without actually touching it. But do not be afraid of being that close. And then you just want to speak normally. You just want to use your normal speaking voice. Yeah, don't overthink it. You're all right. I just want to jump in here and say that the reason you want to be nice and close to the
microphone, a sound tech person told me once, is so that they don't have to turn the gain up on your microphone too much, because the higher they have to turn the volume on your microphone so it's picking up as much sound as possible could result in a lot of feedback. So that's why you want to get as close as possible. For anyone who's watching this who is actually like an industry expert, like maybe you are a sound person or you're a musician or you have, I don't know, actual qualifications, then please let me know in the comments any additional advice that I haven't already given. This is just based on my experience of performing for a few years, but yeah, let me know.
Okay, there's my mic technique. You're welcome. That might sound like a really silly thing, but it does make such a difference in the audience's ability to hear you. Also, don't assume that people can. Just because you have a loud speaking voice, don't be like, oh, you can hear me, I'm not going to use the microphone. Shut up, okay? That's actually a teeny tiny little bit ableist, especially when you consider that if people are hard of hearing, the microphone is a key way of how they're going to hear you. Also, chances are you are not as good at projecting as you thought you were. Because we all know performance poets are just people who did really badly at their drama A level and so never really progressed in acting, so never truly learned how to project their voice on stage, right? We all know that. So stop it. Stop pretending that you can project. Just use the microphone. It's better for everyone. Step 9 is to think about your body language. Thinking about your body language as well as the ways in which you use your voice will be a key way of how your audience understands you and understands the poem. One of the things that can be way easier to show in spoken word is irony and sarcasm. Kind of hard to show in page poetry. Not everyone will understand that you're doing it, but in spoken word you can. So have a think about your body language, how you're going to use your face, your mouth, your voice, all of that to create the mood of the poem. Because it's almost like you have an added layer of, you have the words, you have the point that you're trying to say, like what is being said. Then you have the word choice, which is a layer of how that is being said. But then at spoken word, you have this other layer of how it's being said. So the tone, the speed, the volume, your body language, all of that stuff. So have a think about how you're going to use that as well. P.S. practicing is really important as well. And tip 10, my final tip of this video is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've got a fair few videos planned about spoken word and how you can improve over the next few weeks and months, so make sure you subscribe to keep up with that. One video that I've got coming up soon is how to write a slam winning poem and how to write a good slam poem, and I've got in touch with all of the best slammers I know, and let me tell you, I know a fuckload of them, who are going to come and share their knowledge with you. So make sure you subscribe so that you can keep up with all of that knowledge as well. So that's it for this week's video. I hope you found it useful for knowledge on how to improve your spoken word. Please make sure you like this video and comment down below what was the tip that you were most unexpected to receive. Was it practice? I bet it was practice. I'm being sarcastic. Obviously it wasn't practice. That is obviously the most important tip. Subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. It will really help you to keep up to date with all of my videos, and all of that engagement, that sweet, sweet engagement, helps small creators like me get found. You might be thinking, damn Josie, I love this video, it's really useful. How can I show my appreciation for you in a way more than just a like, comment, subscription and notification bell turned on? I'm so glad you asked, guys. You can buy me a coffee or you can join my Patreon. The links to do both are in the description down below. And you might be thinking, damn, Josie, you are so good looking and so fashionable. I want to see more of you on my social media feeds. How do I do that? You can follow me on social media. I am at Josie Alford Poet on all of the things. If you're still watching this, I just wanted to let you know that I'm actually going down to fortnightly videos. And by that I mean I'm doing a video every 2 weeks. That is because in a few months I'm going travelling, and I'm going travelling for quite a long time. We're going to be gone for about 8 months. And so I want to have a load of videos in the bank for you so that I can maintain videos every other week. This does mean that I'm going to have to scale it back from now so that I have time to make all the videos I want to make for you over the next few months. I hope that makes sense. I'll still be posting regularly on all of my other channels, so do follow, and yeah, thanks for your understanding. We'll come back to weekly probably in 2022. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all next week. Bye.